Hi, I'm Valerie Edwards with Fostering Families Today. It's said when you mentor a young person, you change one life one day at a time. And when you mentor a young person in care, you show them what a healthy relationship can look like. No matter where you live or what you do for a living, you can be a mentor. Coming up, what makes a good mentor, helping your child find a mentor, and how you can support their relationship. And there's a new bipartisan bill in Congress that could mean as much as $50 million for local mentoring programs serving foster youth and former foster youth. Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon will join us from Pennsylvania to talk about the measure. Later, Raquel Wilson, program manager for our sister program, Youth Voices Rising, introduces us to a group of young adults, each sharing how having a mentor helps shape their lives. And as always, we invite you to join our conversation. Our chat is open, and I'm especially excited to hear from those of you who have either mentored a young person or were mentored yourself. And one quick reminder, today's webinar will be available later today at fosteringfamiliestoday.com. Let's start off today with a pair of poll questions for you. Okay, when you were young, say not yet 18 and living with your parents or other adults, how many of you had a mentor, knew how to study for a test? Okay, knew how to study for a test, how to drive, how to apply for a part-time job, shop for groceries, apply to college, or how to handle your finances. Or if you've ever mentored a young person, what's the most important thing you shared? And we've got them listed. We'll have those results for you as soon as they become available. They should be popping up in just a few minutes. Okay. Fostering Families Today, let's go to the slide, is a bi-monthly publication dedicated to informing, engaging, and educating foster, adoptive, and kinship families. You can connect with us on the various social media platforms. And if you haven't done so already, why not take a minute to join one of our Facebook groups? Tiana Howard is with us today from Boulder Options of Minnesota, where she is the data and engagement manager. She is a graduate of Tennessee's Bethel University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in international relations, political science, and history. Boulder Options is a wellness-based mentoring program matching middle schoolers with volunteers who meet with them every week. Let's take a quick look at those poll questions. Oh, some of you were not yet 18 and knew how to drive. Okay, good. Okay, you got it. So if you've ever mentored a young person, what do you think the most important thing? General life lessons, setting goals, overwhelmingly fantastic. Thanks for your participation. Once again, the chat room is open. If you have a question for any of our guests this morning, or if you were mentored or you mentored someone else, we'd love for you to share how your help changed someone's life and how your life was changed with a mentor in your life. Okay, we're talking about Boulder Options. It's a wellness-based mentoring program matching middle schoolers with volunteers who meet with them every week for a year. Participants in Boulder Options focus on holistic personal development through weekly activities. We'll find out more about that later. Also joining us right now is Dr. Rebecca Edwards. I'm sorry, Rebecca, I misidentified you. She is one of the co-founders of Braid Mission, an organization which builds community around foster youth in the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a minister and has many years of youth ministry, and as a volunteer and board member with Big Brothers Big Sisters in her hometown of Chattanooga. Rebecca's experiences form some of the beliefs that guide Braid's mission: that all children deserve to be surrounded by adults who encourage and empower them, and that volunteers need a supportive community to thrive. Thank you both for being here this morning. It's good to see you. Let's get Rebecca Edwards and Tiana Howard up there.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where's Tiana? There you go. Thank you. Okay, so first question, I want to start off today. The benefits for mentoring young girls versus young boys. And then we'll flip it. What are the benefits? And you guys can jump right in. You don't have to raise your hand or anything.
Sure. Do you want me to go, Tatiana?
Yeah, you could go first.
Okay. Yeah, and I would also I guess expand the question too, because we have a lot of youth in our BRAID program who are exploring their gender identity.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we live in a place where that's okay. But I think it's important for all young people really to see different models of what life could be like. A lot of the girls in our program in particularly have experienced sexual abuse and are just at a much higher risk for being trafficked. And that's a really legitimate concern, and that has happened to some of our youth, unfortunately. So I just seeing other models of your worth and what your life could be like, I think is really extra important for young people who have had that type of adversity.
Thanks for that. And thanks for correcting me on that, Rebecca. I appreciate it. Tiana, you want to go ahead and answer the question, the benefits of mentoring for girls and for young boys?
Yeah, I say the benefit for both, despite of gender identity, just the benefit of mentoring for young people is the ability to see the life that they want to have, or kind of have like that guidance. I'm a strong believer, and as well as Boulder Options, a strong believer is you have to be able to see the life that you want to manifest or envision for yourself. And that one ways that can happen is through mentoring. So just seeing someone that's already in a position of leadership that you probably don't have in your life to the day to day, or someone that is pouring into you in a way that you probably don't have that support. Because for our kids, a lot of our kids come from a single parent household, and typically they have multiple siblings. And if you are a single parent, you understand the complexities of raising not just one kid and pouring into one kid. You kind of have to split up your time as well on top of work and providing for your kid. So that extra assistance and having like that one person to really focus on them is really impactful.
Is it necessary for mentors and mentees to share the same lived experience for the relationship to be fruitful?
I could personally speak on that and say no. So I'm a product of Boulder Options. Actually, I was in the program 10 years ago. So I have a mentor. Her name is Emily. She is literally a white woman from Wisconsin. So, uh, like, culturally, we didn't have a lot in common. But I think what allowed our relationship to prosper, and we're still in contact to this day. I'm actually attending her wedding in the fall.
Wow.
Is the fact that both of us were in a space where we were willing to learn from each other. And I think one of the biggest benefits, while the youth get a lot from it, the mentors, when they are coming in with like, I'm not really an expectation and just I'm gonna be a support, and I'm gonna just I tell me how I can help you, and I'm gonna help you in the ways that you feel is necessary without overstepping. And I think that speaks volumes, and that travels a lot further in the long run than feeling the need to, oh, I gotta fix this person. So I think that is more impactful when mentoring. Having things in common, of course, is important, but it's not necessarily end all be all if culturally it's different.
Now, both of you, Boulder Options and Braves, both organizations take a team approach to mentoring young people. Rebecca, why don't you tell us what's going on at Brave?
Yeah, well, our mentoring program at BRAID was designed specifically to serve foster youth, and we spent a lot of time really talking to current and former foster youth and social workers before setting this up. And we heard over and over those stories of people like Emily, or people who weren't in any kind of official mentoring program, neighbors who stepped in and were supportive, teachers who stayed in touch, after the fourth grade, social workers who stayed in touch after their contract was ended. And there is good research that shows that one caring adult can really upend a lot of difficult statistics. But unfortunately, we heard just as many stories about mentors who went on summer vacation and just never showed up again. They burned out. They didn't have enough support, especially when working with youth that had higher needs. And so, of course, for young people who had experienced a lot of abandonment in their lives, that just set off all of that relational trauma and feelings of abandonment. So we didn't want to set that up. And so that's why our volunteers work in teams, and every young person in our program gets a team of 3. And that allows us to, first of all, be safe. We always have 2 adults present with a young person, whether that's in person or virtually. And also it helps us stay with them long term, so that if, and we ask mentors for a commitment of a year, but if something comes up in their lives, it's a natural life transition, like going to grad school or getting a new job or needing to care for a family member. We have 2 other team members who are still holding that space and holding that relationship. And we can model a healthy goodbye and then a healthy welcoming of a new team member. And that's another mentoring moment where the mentors can really demonstrate also how to have relationships with other adults, how to have relationships with people who are different from you, that may have different interests, different backgrounds. And so and it allows us to stay with youth over the long term, and there's no cutoff date. So when one mentor leaves, we can keep going.
What you said, you asked for a commitment of a year. What are people averaging though? What are the mentors averaging?
That's a good question. I haven't run the stats in a while, but the majority of our mentors stay for 2 years or longer.
And okay. So, Tiana, you want to answer that for me as well? Tell me about Boulder Options. You refer to it as a holistic mentoring program. What does that mean? And what's the outcomes that you're seeing for the young people in your program?
Yes. So Boulder Options, like you said, we are a holistic mentoring organization. So we work with the youth between the ages of 10 to 14, which is like that middle school age. The reason we target that is because stats show that that is a really significant development period for a young person, and in a lot of ways that could really set the trajectory of their life. So that's why we focus on that age demographic. And the holistic approach that we have, essentially, we focus on mental, emotional, physical wellness, as well as academic success. So we do cooking nights, we do gardening, teach our kids how to garden, and then they actually harvest that food in the winter and actually prepare, see like the fruit of their labor, essentially. So they do stuff like that,
Fantastic.
learn about financial literacy. We do a plethora of things, and we still out on be kids. You know, we do sledding. We did kickball with the kids the other day, and I was like, I'm in my mid-20s, and I was tired at the end of the day with the little ones. So we do a lot of different things with our kids, giving them different access and opportunities of things that they otherwise probably wouldn't have, especially growing up in the inner city. So that's essentially the holistic approach. Our success, far as we have our mentors volunteer their time, so they're saying they're willing to commit to a year, but our kids, they get referred to us through a professional, and that is essentially social work, a counselor, anyone of who worked with that youth refers them to us. Then we ask the kid, do they actually want to be in the program? So we're having both parties commit. So if the youth said they don't want to do it, that's it. We're not going to force them to be in this program. It's like, we want you to be able to have a voice in the process as well. So once both parties commit, that's when they get through the program, kind of match people based on interests, things that they like, and demographic plays a role too, as far as like where they live. And then that's essentially how they go forth through the year together, by spending 2 hours a week together for a year, every week for a year, I should say. And our success rate, we have I believe, 86 success rate, which is higher than the national success rate in mentoring. And as well, we also seen growth academically in our kids, as well as seeing them, over 60% of our youth say they see themselves pursuing higher education after being in our program. And a lot of them have. We actually have a couple kids going to be attending St. Thomas in the fall, as well as my one of the young people is going to be attending Bethel University, which I graduated from in St. Paul in Minnesota. So I'm pretty excited about seeing them kind of grow and prosper as well.
Rebecca, I didn't ask you. Diana mentioned that she has a mentor. Do you have a mentor as well?
No, no, I never had a formal mentor in that kind of sense, but we actually, when we do our training for Braid volunteers, we do an exercise where they break into small groups and tell stories about people who have been mentors in their own lives, which is a way of just thinking about what is a mentor. And it's usually someone who is more of an organic support than someone in a formal program. And every time I participate in that, I try to think of someone different, just as kind of an exercise in gratitude and realizing that none of us got to where we are by ourselves. And so sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's a family friend, sometimes it's one of my grandparents. So I feel very fortunate to have had a lot of folks along the way that influenced me in different ways.
I'm glad you mentioned that, formal versus informal mentors. Sometimes you're right. It's a teacher who can make a difference. Shout out to all the teachers who, past and former and present teachers who are listening with us today, because the impact of the teachers, how teachers can shape young lives and for these young people in school right now. Anyway, I'm a big teacher supporter, so I'm going to get off of that soapbox. Okay, so children go through different stages, and children grow and they evolve. We hope they evolve. They evolve into young adults who then evolve into adults. Do we keep the same mentor throughout our lifetime, or do we necessarily change mentors? Go ahead. You don't have to raise your hand.
Oh, you could go, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the beauty of Braid's team model that we've seen over the years, that as teams go through transitions, which they normally do, because we don't, expect anyone to stay for 10 years, that as we go through those transitions, we can sit with the team and say, what are this young person's needs now? And they may be thinking more about a different career, or just have different interests as they get older. And so we can kind of adapt with them. And we just now, our program is almost 9 years old, and we just have youth who are turning 18, and we're figuring out what it means to work with them in this very new landscape of adulthood, and what do they need that's different. And I think that they are going to need different types of mentors for different situations that they're facing, and we're just trying to evolve with them through that.
Fantastic. Let's go to the chat room, guys, for a moment real quick. Can I open this? One never knows. I'm not as savvy. Okay, so my two guests this morning, anyone, any of the chats that stand out for you? You want to give a shout out to someone and we can address their comments? I'm going through them real quick. Good morning. Let's see. I have no sound. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. I know we had some in here. We've got about 70. Let's say good morning to Renee Brinkman from from Missouri Older Youth Program Coordinator. We're happy to have you here as well. And Danny Van, a former foster youth, writes, yes, help them find a passion goal. For me, it was music. That's phenomenal. Fresh Start Foster Parents. Mevlin Figueroa joins us this morning. Thanks, guys, for all your comments. If you have a question or a comment for one of our guests, please feel free to drop it into the chat. We love hearing from you. We love hearing from our readers and our listeners. So I want to get to helping young people, helping parents help their children find a mentor. And Rebecca, let's start with you. What should parents be looking for in a mentor?
I don't know if there's any one specific quality. I listened to a really wonderful interview yesterday with Dr. Vivek Murthy, who is the Surgeon General right now. And he was talking about isolation as kind of its own pandemic that was only exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And when we think about health in terms of wholeness, he said what you need to do to help someone else be whole is be willing to listen, willing to learn, and willing to love. And that's really what we throw up open to our mentors. We really tell them that they have everything they need already by being authentically themselves. And as long as they come with that willingness to do those things, that's really what it's about, is surrounding a young person with community. So I think someone who, and especially for foster youth, who's coming with an understanding of that history. I saw a poignant comment in the chat about someone who wasn't in care, but could have been in care, and how difficult it is to trust adults. So we really try to train our volunteers to understand that's why you give a year, because it might take that whole year before you have really developed that sense of safe space in those relationships. So really need to come to it with that willingness to be open and to learn. As Tatiana said, it is a growth experience for volunteers just as much for the youth. So ask our volunteers to do that willingness for their inner work and how to keep learning and listening and loving.
I want to make a point that for both organizations, your mentors are volunteers, correct?
Yes.
How do you step in with versus CASA, like volunteers versus CASA? Aren't they volunteers as well?
CASAs are volunteers that have a more specific role in writing those reports for judges and doing that advocacy work. We love CASA. We work very closely with them in the Bay Area. But one thing that's kind of magical about what our volunteers do, because they're often stepping into a situation where youth has a lot of people surrounding them, trying to help them, but it's their job to do that. And young people have this innate radar for that. We had one of the early youth in our program, she asked her mentors every week for almost 3 months, how much are you getting paid to see me today? And they would say, we're not getting paid, we're volunteers. And then she would say, how many other kids do you have to see after me? So she was used to people helping her, but it was their job. And she was part of the docket, and they were going to write a report about her. And so something we are very clear with our youth about when they come into the program is no one's evaluating you, judging you. We don't have these specific goals for you. We're here to be companions and support you in your goals and your needs. And sometimes they just need to play on the playground, and they don't need to talk about everything because they do have therapists or they have other people that can do that, but it's their job. So that it takes a while for our youth to adjust to that, what that means. But once they start to sense what that is, it is really magical.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think to kind of add to that, for our mentors, when they volunteer their time, it's pretty clear to the youth young person. I want to give young people a little bit of credit. They're smart. They're very aware when they know that someone is doing something because of their job versus like something is being done because, oh, it's genuine. And I think knowing for our program, the youth know off bat that the mentor is like volunteering their time. So they know that this person is choosing to pour into a young person, and you guys are the two we just decided to match together, which there's a process for that and why we pick you guys, but that's the logic behind it. And knowing that on both ends, that both parties agree to it, it's impactful. It's already kind of setting the precedent. It's like, okay, we're both saying we're committing to this. And I think that is more impactful than knowing like, well, they're getting paid a little bit on the side to commit. So it's like, even if they don't really like you, they probably gonna stay because of the money. So I think that is a little bit more impactful when you know that it's volunteer work.
I love it. Thank you. I love both of you said the choice. I want to take a moment to say hi to Mike Crinkney from Silver Lining Mentoring, a Boston area mentoring organization for young people with foster care experience. Thanks for being here today, Mike. We appreciate the work you do. We appreciate your being with us today. Diana, I never asked you any advice what parents should look for when it comes to helping their child find a mentor.
hmm I would say the advice I would give a parent, first, I will say I am not a parent. So take what I say as you will, because at the end of the day, you're going to decide to parent how you want to parent. But I would say when it comes to mentoring, definitely make sure that you're, as the parent, is also comfortable with the process. Make sure you are very aware what the process is and what it looks like. And are you comfortable with your child hanging out with an adult that you don't really know that well? So I would say like make it your point and attention to like really get to know that adult as well. For our program, we do have our mentor do check-ins with the head of household in our program just to make sure that that line of communication is always happening. I know with me, my mom and my mentor is essentially best friends. It's like my mom had a nickname for my mentor and all that stuff. So I think that definitely helps and make sure that you could trust that adult as well as make sure that your child is also keeping that line of communication open with you as well about what that process is like for them and allow them to have a space for you as well. I think that all of that combined definitely helps you be a little bit more comfortable with the transition, especially in the beginning.
Do parents ever say no? They don't want a mentor for their child? Anybody ever tell you guys no?
Yes, there's been times. Sometimes it's just the unfamiliar nature of what mentoring is like. Don't really understand the program and the full capacity of what it does. Is sometimes why it's turned away. It's very unlikely. Honestly, it's not common for us, but it has happened, and that's typically the reason why.
Rebecca, same question.
Yeah, it's rare for us to have a caregiver actually say no, but the majority of youth in our program are living with a grandparent. They're in kinship care. Some have been reunited with a bio parent, and they are still living in households that have toxic stress. I mean, most of these grandparents are raising a house full of grandchildren. They have so much going on. It's not necessarily, I don't want mentoring, but they just can't handle another thing. And so that tends to be sometimes where it doesn't work. We do have, as part of our team model, we have the 3 mentors who work with the youth, and then we have a 4th member of the team that's more behind the scenes that is also a volunteer, but they are the team facilitator, and they serve as the main point of contact with that caregiver, whether it's a foster parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever it is. That helps kind of streamline things, but also provides a source of support to that caregiver, which sometimes really is pretty significant, helping translate meetings at school or find extra resources or just being a listening ear. So we really do try to support that whole family system because we know there can be a lot of stress there. And because those facilitators are mostly behind the scenes, we learned during COVID that they could be all over the country and it was still effective. So that's allowed us to recruit volunteers from anywhere to be part of BRAID, even if they aren't in the Bay Area.
Fantastic. Well, I had hoped that Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon would join us. She's a Congresswoman from the 5th District in Pennsylvania. However, I just received word that she's been called to the floor for a vote. She may not join us today. She may join us later in the program. Excuse me, pardon me. And I wanted to introduce her to you guys because she authored a bipartisan bill. And I emphasize bipartisan because it doesn't seem like anybody in Washington can get along, but everyone has signed on to this one. It's making its way. It's in Congress right now. The bill would authorize $50 million for mentoring organization nationwide who serve current and former foster youth. Before we close out this segment, I want to ask you both, in an ideal world, if you could have any money from this $50 million, Tiana, what would you want for your organization? And then Rebecca, I want you to answer the same question.
Honestly, I am a big advocate for expansion. I feel like expanding our reach is something that I would want to do. So far, we work in, if you're familiar with Minnesota, we work in the Twin Cities locations, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, and the Rochester area. I think expanding a little bit further out to probably like Crystal and like the neighboring suburbs would definitely be impactful. And allowing more resources, that means having more staff on board, having more, expanding our outreach to get more mentors. And I think all of that would definitely be a bigger turnaround for more youth that we can impact, because there's always more people that we could help serve. And it's all comes down to accessibility, truly. And being a nonprofit, sometimes you don't have all the key parts.
Well, that bill, the author is, I see a question in the chat room, someone asked, it's Mary Gay Scanlon. She's a congresswoman from Pennsylvania. She authored a bill that's in Congress right now that would authorize $50 million for mentoring organizations serving current and former foster youth. And we'll put a link on our website if you want to check out not the text of the bill, but just a synopsis. You can learn a little bit more about her. I guess she's still in Congress right now and can't make it, but she has an extensive background in child social welfare. So I would have loved for her to join us. She's not here, but I'm gonna hook you up so you guys can find more about it. Rebecca, in an ideal world, you get a piece of that $50 million. What would you guys use it for? What do you need?
Yeah, I would say a plus one for having more capacity to expand throughout the Bay Area. It's a small geographical range, but we're dealing with 5 different counties, which can be really challenging for getting youth referrals and making connections with organizations. So having more kind of staff power to do that kind of recruiting, both of volunteers and also making connections with partner agencies is probably where we would devote that.
Okay. Final words, Rebecca, let's start with you. Any final words you'd like to share with our listeners on parents helping their young people, their children find a mentor, their young adult? And then Tiana, we're going to ask you the same question.
Well, just a huge shout out for foster parents. I mean, we're asking Brave Mentors to volunteer an hour a week, and you all are doing the other 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, and really doing the hard work of providing that safe space. We always consider ourselves coming alongside a great thing that's already being done. So I think anytime you're looking for extra resources and things that can support you and keep you healthy, that's a great thing. So if you're on this webinar, you're already taking a step above, and I commend you, and it's an honor to work alongside you.
Fantastic. Tiana, you have any last words for resource parents listening today when it comes to helping young people find a mentor?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, be willing to take a leap of faith, especially when you're venturing out into a program you don't know, could really be life-changing for your young person. And the work that you are already doing and pouring in is already impactful. We just want to add to that impact. So I would say we just know that the organizations that exist that does mentoring with young people, a lot of the organizations, they essentially want to ignite what is already existing within your young person. They already are great. They already are motivated. They already are encouraged. They already want to do big things. We just our job is just to help them see that within themselves. They're already trailblazers. We just want to get them to that point to believe that they are. So yeah, take the time to invest in mentoring organizations to help bridge that gap for you.
Do you both still need volunteers? I imagine there's a forever need. Yeah.
Oh, yes, always.
I opened by saying anybody living anywhere, no matter what you do for a living, can be a mentor. Is that accurate? Do you need any special skills?
I would say for us, we are focused on the in-person aspect. So if you're in the Minnesota area, Twin City, even if you don't necessarily live in the Twin Cities, you live on the outskirts, you can always become a mentor. I would say if you don't live in the area, but you want to contribute, Boulder Options, spelled BOLDER options. If you visit our website, you can always make a financial contribution to our organization, which that impacts us being able to impact our youth. So yeah, those are two ways you could contribute. And we're always looking for different ways to partner. So feel free to contact me or anyone else on our team to do that.
We're going to have a link to both organizations on our website. We're going to show them in just a moment, as well as contact information for both Rebecca and Tiana. So I want to ask you before we go, Rebecca, the need for volunteers still exists?
Yes, always. And as I said, folks can be involved with Braid as a facilitator from anywhere, but we also have a link, a page on our website, I think it's just called Volunteer, where you can find other mentoring organizations if you want to be in person where you are. You can also go to mentor.org, and they have a mentoring connector that connects to Braid and a lot of other programs. So I don't think there's anywhere where you really can't mentor unless you're truly in the middle of nowhere. There are programs that would love to have you.
Diana Howard of Minneapolis-based Boulder Options and Rebecca Edwards from San Francisco Bay Area's Braids organization. Both groups match volunteer mentors using a tag team approach with young people in their communities. Hey guys, I have to move on to the next segment, but before I do, I want to invite you to stick around. We've got more conversation coming up, this time with some young adults sharing their experiences with their mentors. And for our listeners today, you can find a link. Let's go to slide 4. You can find a link to Boulder Options and Braid Mission here and on our resource page, along with some other national mentoring organizations. Those are up there. We're going to have them for you later. You did mention mentoring.org. There's some more. I think we have another. Do we have all? Okay, good. We have another one. Okay, so guys, I hope you stick around. We've got a lot more good conversation headed your way. Raquel Wilson, she's the program manager for Youth Voices Rising. She's going to introduce us to a team of young adults sharing their insight on the difference a mentor can make in a young person's life. Don't go away, please. Please, Tiana, please, Rebecca, please stay with us. Okay, let me introduce you to Raquel, because she's one of my favorite people, because she's such an advocate for young people. She's a graduate with 2 degrees, first in Master's of Arts in Grant Writing, Management and Evaluations, and an MBA in Nonprofit Management. But more than her credentials, Raquel is an outspoken advocate for systems-involved youth and encourages them to become advocates for themselves and for the next generation. Raquel? Have we lost Raquel? There she is. Here she is.
Me. We didn't lose me. I'm here. Hi, Val. Thank
always
you so much for having me.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Raquel's work, you should check her out, Youth Voices Rising, one of the most phenomenal young people I see, who is out there, feet on the ground, doing the hard work. So Raquel, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Thanks for being here today.
Yes, thank you so much, Val and Fostering Families Today, for having me. I'm super grateful for this wonderful collaboration between both of our programs. And so I'm ready to get started so we can jump right into the conversation. So I would love to welcome and introduce our panelists that we will be speaking with today. So first up, I have Dr. Sky Lee Ross, who is a LA County system impacted educated sister who has completed her doctorate degree, hence the Dr. Ross tag. Just laughing. She has dedicated her life to serving these marginalized communities, providing therapy and educating others on the importance of mental health. Hi, Dr. Sky. It's so good to see you again. You have worked for our program before, so I'm definitely happy to have a conversation with you today. Next up, we have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. Her name is Atori Burrell. She is a mother, a leader, and a former foster youth with juvenile incarceration experience. She serves on the San Bernardino County Board as a motivational speaker. And in her own right, she is a heavy hitter whom I absolutely love. You could read some of the wonderful stories that Atori has written for the YBR program on our website. And so Atori, welcome. I'm so happy to have you and be able to speak with you today. And so last but certainly not least is another one of my favorite people who I literally just absolutely love to death too as well. So Jackie is what we call her. Robles is a policy enthusiast, a consultant. She's also a heavy hitter serving LA County system impacted youth. She lives in, she has experienced the Los Angeles County foster care system in the Indian Child Welfare Unit for over 15 years of her life. She's currently serving as a consultant for the Office of Child Protection. She's also an LA Youth Commissioner for the Board of Supervisors and was appointed by Board of Supervisor Janice Hahn. She has a bachelor's degree in business management and also a master of policy, a master's in public policy from UCLA. And so Jackie, Atori, Dr. Sky Ross, I don't even know Dr. Sky, what I'm supposed to, I don't even know. Do you want me to say Dr. Ross? Do you want me to say Sky? I want to be respectful to your new title, of course. So,
me, Dr. Sky.
Dr. Sky, perfect.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So welcome you guys. So I'm so grateful to have you guys. And of course, you guys know the conversation is about mentorship. And, I want to talk about your experiences and, how did you discover mentorship? And so I want to ask the first question because this most often comes up, and I'm sure there's going to be questions in the chat. Please feel free to leave some questions in the chat if you have some for our panelists. And so I'll start with Jackie, and then you guys, Dr. Sky and Atori, please feel free to chime in. Were you guys always open to having a mentor? And in the beginning, when you first had a mentor, what did you think having a mentor meant?
That's such a great question. Earlier in the discussion, I definitely resonated with, I think Rebecca talking about one of her clients or youth that she serves, asking the mentor that came, like, are you getting paid to see me? Are you here because you're getting paid? And I really resonated with that because I think early on when I was a young teenager, I definitely felt that. And I was living in a group home and I was very wary of meeting new people and always, just meeting someone new every week, whether that's a case manager, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a social worker, whatever it is. And I would always think well, you're paid to see me, you're paid to be here. And so it definitely created that inauthentic relationship up front. So I would say I definitely was not open to mentorship or even understood what mentorship could be and do for me. I think it wasn't until later when I was older, when I finally became, over 18, I finally understood okay, there are people that do want to help me and I'm not going to be able to get where I want to be without them. And I'm not going to be able to go alone. And so that's when I finally understood how important mentorship could be for me. So initially, no, but later on, yes.
Yes, thank you, Jackie, so much. And so Dr. Sky or Tori, please feel free, whichever one of you want to chime in.
Sure, I'll chime in. I was very open to it because my family of origin was very unsupportive of me. My biological mother has a lot of mental illness that's untreated, undiagnosed. She refuses to see a doctor or a therapist. So she was very unsupportive. She didn't want me to go to UCLA. She thought that the building would collapse on me due to an earthquake. So she's like, you can't go to college, you're going to die. So she just very mentally ill. So for me, I didn't have many supportive adults in my life. My dad was in and out of the picture. He was homeless a lot throughout my childhood. So I didn't get to see him very often. So I was desperate for supportive adults to help me reach my goals. And so when I got into foster care at age 16, I was very open to having a mentor. I didn't have a CASA worker, but my foster care agency did have a mentorship program later on. They did ask adults to volunteer and to meet some of the youth that they worked with. And so that's how I met my mentor, Ariel, and she went to UCLA. And so we connected a lot because she was also a musician. I do music as well. And so we connected really deeply when we met each other. They kind of had like a speed dating thing. They had like all of the volunteer mentors come, and then they had all the youth come, and they basically had us talk to each other at a table for like 2 to 5 minutes. And then the mentors got to choose which youth they connected with most that they wanted to work with. So that's how I met my mentor, Ariel. So I was very open to it. I was desperate for connection, really looking for support. And so I was really happy to find that.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy that you are sharing the positiveness of, just being open-minded to mentorship. So, Atoria, I wanted to pass that same question over to you.
Yeah, I won't be long. But of course, I was not open to mentorship because I thought I knew it all. I figured I had all the answers to my life. I had a big problem with someone telling me what to do. I don't know if anybody has foster children or, your own children in your life that pretty much has all of the answers. And so that was me. I wasn't open to mentorship. It wasn't until I kind of fell into some trouble that I noticed, hey, I need some help, and I need help from an adult who could help me get out of this situation. And so I think once I seen how resourceful someone was, my mentor, her name was Heather Dennington. She was a total opposite of who I was, but she was definitely like vital in my upbringing out of foster care. And she helped me get out of a lot of things. And so as I look back now, she was definitely clutch, but I was not open to being told what to do or how to do things, in my younger days.
Yes, and I appreciate you for being honest about and transparent about your behavior, and how, that led to you and how you got here. And we're gonna talk more about that. So, Atori, you talk about some of the fears that you had, and some of the initial thoughts that you had. So I wanted to ask the question, during this time when you're like, getting ready to transition, you actually become open-minded to it. Was some of those fears connected to you feeling like that you might be judged, or that like because of your lived experience that that they might not look at you? You talk about might like not look at you the same as they would probably be working with other youth that didn't experience the system. What were some of those fears that you guys like that you had when you were battling the thought of having a mentor?
So I believe it was Rebecca who mentioned earlier how she never quite had like a professional mentor, but along her life, there's someone who has came in and stepped up and helped her in a certain type of way. And so I give all credit to my mentor in that same way, that Heather. She wasn't appointed by any agency or anything like that. Life brought us together. And so by the time she came into my life, I was not, nothing made me want to not talk to her. She was a white woman, so out in public, sometimes it was like, okay, I wonder how people are viewing us, but she believed in me. She pushed me in areas that, people in my own family and my own closest space, they weren't giving me that same motivation, that same, in those encouraging words, demanding the betterment out of me. And she was, so whatever like pre-existing notion I had about her went out the window. and so we were able to really bond and really grow our relationship.
Yes, I really love that. I really love that response. And so, Jackie, I want to pass that same question over to you, and then Sky, you can take us away with your thoughts on, any fears that you may have had. And if you didn't have any fears for you, Sky, I want to know, like, why did you decide that having a mentor was a good idea? And further elaborate on some of the things that you had mentioned earlier.
I think definitely initially some of the fears that I had was just not being able to trust people, especially new people in my life. I always felt like people coming into my life would not be there for a long time. So definitely just right off the bat, that fear of mistrust. And also just one more other thing was sharing things to this potential mentor things that I have not healed myself and things that I'm not okay with opening up to another person, especially just, some new person to me. But ultimately, I think I really resonated with what Atori said is once I realized like she was on my side, my mentors were on my side, they wanted to see me win, they were here for me, all those kind of fears definitely went out the window.
Yes, Dr. Sky.
Yeah, I don't think I had any fears at that point because my family of origin was just so awful. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. They were so abusive, so neglectful, because I lived with my biological mother, uncle, and grandmother, and they were all just incredibly abusive and neglectful to me. So when I got put in foster care, I was so happy to get away from them. And so I fought to get put in foster care. I actually spent about 6 months trying to, or maybe it might have been closer to 8 months, trying to convince social workers that I needed to be taken out of the home because they were not allowing me to pursue higher education. I couldn't visit friends and family and relatives. I couldn't do anything in my home of origin. So I was desperate to get out. So when I did get placed in foster care, it was such a relief. I wasn't fearful of anything because my home of origin it was getting away from them. That was the whole fear, was like, I'm going to be stuck with them for the rest of my life. I can't get out of here. I can't go to college. I can't do anything with my life. So getting out of that toxic environment really empowered me to finally achieve my goals. So I had a loving foster mother. I'm still in touch with her. I'm still in touch with my mentor, Ariel. I saw someone ask that in the chat. Yes, we're still in contact. And then I got a therapist too. So like I said, I was very much in need of supportive adults and connections. And so getting put in foster care enabled me to find those types of connections. And so my mentor, my foster mother, and my therapist were all very supportive, especially when social workers weren't supportive. I could fall back on my therapist or my mentor to help me. Social workers would say, oh, if you need a ride somewhere, give us a call. If you need help with something, give us a call. You give them a call and then they don't answer, they don't help you. So my mentor was able to step in like, oh, I can give you a ride somewhere. I can take you there. My therapist was able to help me because I was scared of getting lost when I finally got accepted to UCLA. I was really scared of, that was a fear I had. I was like, I'm going to get lost and I'm not going to be able to find a bathroom. It's going to be horrible. So my therapist took me to the campus and we walked around and we looked at the maps and he helped me cope with some of those fears that I was having. So no, I didn't have any fears with finding the adult support that I needed because like I said, my home of origin was just so awful. I was just very happy to get away from it. So yeah, that's just, my story's a little bit different. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
and different is good because what I think is that all three of you guys have had different perspectives in terms of how you tackled or handled managed navigating through mentorship and getting a mentor. And I think that literally is the trajectory of like our foster youth lives. Like sometimes it's unorthodox. It doesn't look like it's the same for everybody. And that's why mentorship is important. But the way that people approach mentees has to be case by case and not, and not, just one general consensus. And so I really love that for you guys. And so I want to talk more about your mentors and talk about some of the things, your experiences with them and some of the things that you guys, did and how that helped you shape your life. And so, why did you, before we get into that though, why did you pick the mentor that you picked? Like, what was it about your mentor that made you say, this is my person, and I want to stick with them? Like, how did you make that decision? And if mentorship wasn't something that you were fond of in the beginning, what made you change your mind? What about them made you change your mind? And so, Jackie, please take us away.
Of course. Before I answer that, I do want to just quickly answer Elizabeth's question in the chat. I think this is,
please.
says, while you were developing trust with your mentors, did you mostly meet for a meal or go for a walk? Ideas for things to do. So one of my favorite mentors, she actually came and met me at my group home. And I think looking back, I'm like, don't do that. I think if you're going to meet with a mentee, and this is my opinion for the first time, I think you should meet them at a neutral location, whether that's at a meal, going to get lunch, or going to the park. Definitely not going into their space. At least that's how I felt, like almost cornered, like, you know, she's here in my space and I can't get out of this. Or so definitely meeting in a neutral location, but anything that could be fun and age appropriate, the park, getting a meal, taking them somewhere fun, anything like that. But to answer the question, I think ultimately having that mistrust or fear with mentors initially early on, but then realizing, like, you know, these people are almost gatekeepers. These people are people that I haven't seen around me. Being in foster care, I didn't see people with college degrees. My one mentor, she was my former attorney at Children's Law Center in Los Angeles. She doesn't work there anymore. She became my mentor after she stopped working there. But you know, I never saw someone that had a college degree. And so for that was big for me. That was huge. And to know that, oh, it is possible. And for her to help me and guide me to do those things, because I knew I wanted to go to college. And she was one person, the one constant person in my life that I knew she did it. She knows how to do it. She can guide me. And so when I let her in and allowed that and realized, like, if I want to do anything or go anywhere, I need people like her around me to kind of guide that path and make sure I'm on the right direction. So I think overcoming that fear mentally in my head and realizing, like, okay, this is a person I can trust was really the switch for me.
Yes, I love that. So Tori, and thank you so much, Jackie, for that. I appreciate that so much. Tori, did you want to follow up, or did you want to add anything to the question?
What was your original question, Raquel?
Yes. So the question was, you know, once you discovered, like, what made your mentor your person? Like, how did you make that decision that was your person? And what about them, especially you being someone that did not, you know, did not appreciate the idea of someone, a stranger, being a mentor to you? You know, what made this person, like, how did they change your mind and let you make you open to the process?
She chose me. You know, she picked me out. I used to play basketball for my high school team, and I think she noticed that I was a little quiet, a little shy, kind of off to the side, not involving myself with all of the girls. And she noticed, you know, that the home that I lived in, they weren't my same nationality, you know? And so she's like, okay, what is going on with her? You know, who is this kid? And so she pretty much like she was our team mom. And so she would always bring snacks. She would always bring food. That's the way to my heart, you know, it's a good meal. And so, so she brought some food up to the school, and her daughter actually became a very good friend of mine. And so, on an outing with me and her daughter, she kind of just like asked me, like, hey, what's your life story? You know, what are you about? And I was put on the spot, but her energy was very open, you know, so I wasn't shy with expressing to her, like, hey, I'm in foster care, you know, don't really have a family, don't really have this, you know, and she's like, oh, okay. And she never like assumed the role of mentor. She just played the role. She just did what she had to do to encourage me. When she saw me falling back and slacking off in certain areas, she would let me know, like, hey, you're much better than that, you know. When she saw that I needed new clothes or anything like that, or when she took her daughter shopping, you know, she's like, hey, ask Tori if she wants to come. And so so she kind of just took on that responsibility of helping me out in certain areas. And you know, as I look back, it was so many areas that she's helped me out in. And so that's why I give all credit to her as my mentor. And she was a woman of wise words, you know, she didn't really have to do much. Some of the things she said just continue to stick around with me. I remember when I first found out that I was pregnant, and she said, Tori, yeah, okay, life is changing, but one thing that's not going to change is you going to school. And so she's the one who made sure that regardless of anything, you keep going, you keep chasing after your dreams. So all credit to Miss Heather Dennington.
I absolutely appreciate that. That is really great, and I'm really happy that you had those experiences too, you and Jackie. And then Dr. Scott, we want to welcome you to share more about your experiences with your mentor. And you know, what was the decision like with picking this person? I know you shared that you guys did like a fun activity, and they got to choose you. So like, you know, what once they chose you or selected you, what made you feel like that they were your person? And I love that. I love that the course of action that they took, their approach that they took, to connect you to a mentor by doing that kind of speed dating kind of thing. That was pretty cool. So yeah, could you elaborate a little bit more on that and that experience and what made that person the right person for you? And you know, what was the benefit of that? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, she chose me out of all of the youth that she spoke to because we deeply connected because we both love music and she did go to UCLA and that was my biggest goal was to go there. And so similar to what Jacqueline was saying, I didn't know what college was when I was in high school, when I was in middle school. I didn't know that was even an option for me. My family lived on Section 8 housing with SSI and welfare and food stamps. Nobody had a job, nobody had a college degree. So I was not exposed to that. And I got the opportunity to go to UCLA when I went to high school. There was a program called VIPS, UCLA VIPS, Vice Provost Initiative for Pre-College Scholars. It's a really long acronym. And what they do is they bring more diversity to UCLA's campus. They go to high schools and they pick out the students of color that are highly excelling. And then they help bring you to the campus and you get a $20,000 scholarship if you join that program. And so that was something my biological mother did not want me to do. She did not want to sign the permission slip for me to be a part of that program. So my dad signed it because he's like, I dropped out of high school. Of course, I want my daughter to be educated. And so my mentor, Ariel, she went to UCLA. And so she showed me that I could go too. You know, she told me about her experiences. She told me how much she loved it. And so that made me really excited because I really wanted to go. So she supported me in that. And she showed me that that was an option for me. That was something I was capable of doing. And so that really helped pave the way for me to actually go once I was accepted. And my mentor and I saw someone ask in the chat, like, what types of things did you do with your mentor? Because we love music, we actually had a jam session together. She plays bass guitar. She used to be in a rock band. So we had a jam session together where I sang some of my original lyrics and she played her bass guitar. And then she played her own GarageBand on Apple, on her MacBook. And so we were just like playing around, having a jam session. And then she also invited me to parties with her friends. I got to meet some of the friends that she hangs out with. They were all strong, really powerful, empowered women. So that was really cool. And she was also queer, and I also identify as queer. I identify as pan-romantic demisexual. So to be around another queer woman was also a really great experience to have, especially because I didn't really know that many queer people at the time or in foster care. And I didn't come out until I went to college, but it just helped being around her. So I absolutely loved being with my mentor. I haven't seen her in a while because she moved to Santa Clarita. So she's no longer in Pasadena, but I still live in Pasadena, my hometown. But when I was in foster care, she was down the street from my foster home. So I could easily just go walk down the street to visit her and talk with her, and we'd have meals together. And then when I was moving to the dorms at UCLA, she helped me buy boxes and packing tape so I could pack all my belongings and go. So she was just really helpful. And she was there at my graduation when I got my master's. She was there at my graduation from UCLA. So we definitely made a very strong bond, and I'm very lucky to have her in my life.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Sky, and thank you, Tori, and thank you so much, Jacqueline. So we're going to finish this conversation, but I want to pause real quick because we were recently joined by someone that we definitely want to have a conversation with. So we're going to pause the conversation. I'm going to come back to you guys, but just give me a second so that we can talk about this bipartisan bill that is making its way through Congress. That could mean as much as $50 million for local mentoring programs serving foster youth and former foster youth. I'm Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Forgive me if I haven't. Has joined us from Pennsylvania to talk about the bill and its measures. And so, Mary, I'm Miss Scally. I'm so sorry. I wanted to thank you so much for being here today. And we wanted to just ask you some questions in regards to the bill. And welcome you to the forum. How are you doing today?
Okay, I'm actually in DC, so I'm sorry I couldn't be there earlier. We had votes because we're having a little debt crisis here. So that held me up. But thank you so much for having me. And I can't tell you how moving it's been to listen to what people are saying, because before I came to Congress, and I only got here about 4 years ago, but I spent decades as a child advocate representing kids in the abuse and neglect system in Philadelphia. And I also started a mentoring program at one of our public high schools. And it was really kind of based around career stuff. So kids who were interested in maybe going into the law or government service or something like that. So that was really helpful. You're talking about how do you connect with someone. That mentoring program, we were connecting kind of around ideas around public service and that kind of thing. And that gave us a starting point. But it was really interesting to see how some matches really worked and people just clicked right off the bat, and how some just, it was like oil and water and it was never going to happen. So finding those connections, obviously is a big, important part of it. My first big mentoring experience was with a young lady who I was representing. She'd been abused by her stepfather. She was only 10 years old. And it took us a while to connect because she was traumatized. She was in foster care. She didn't trust anybody, and with good reason. But a couple of people mentioned it being about people showing up and consistency. And for 15 years, I was one of the few constants in her life. She wasn't living with her birth family anymore. The social workers changed every 6 months or more often sometimes. It was a different judge. It was a different this, it was a different that. So over time, we got to know each other pretty well. And she became part of my broader family, and we still stay in touch. But get that ability to get to know people, to learn to trust on both sides. Clearly, I was not from her neighborhood, and in Philadelphia, whether or not you're from the neighborhood is everything. But so finding the ways that we could connect was really important. So in Congress, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Foster Youth Caucus, so trying to make sure that foster youth and the people who work with them and provide services to them have what they need, and we can, try to break down some of the barriers that we see around the whole process and provide enough funding. But I'm also chair of the Youth Mentoring Caucus, so this bill kind of came together through both of those interests, knowing that maybe more than most folks, youth who are in foster care could probably use an extra person to bounce things off. And so trying to plus up supports for those programs, because, while sometimes those connections are made immediately, sometimes it takes more work. It can, you can help people become better mentors. You can help young people have different opportunities to be mentors. So it was really interesting just hearing people talk about, I wasn't ready for it at a particular point, or it just wasn't the right fit, but how do you keep having more opportunities so people can find the right fit when they're ready to have that kind of relationship? And just, I would urge any of the young people we're talking to today to seek out mentors. And this is a conversation I've had with my own kids, because people are really eager to do this. And they will say, yes, I will be your mentor. It doesn't even have to be that, that formal. It can be, hey, I just want to talk to you about doing this kind of work, or going to college, or, doing some kind of activity or something, playing in a band, and just finding something in common that you can talk about. And that's, what I always tell people who are interested in becoming mentors is that you're going to get so much more out of this than the kids are, because it is very much a two-way street. everybody learns something. And, I just want to try to be supportive. So we have gotten bipartisan support to introduce this bill and to try to push it along and to provide, basically materials for people who want to be mentors, funding to make sure we can expand those programs and really do the best we can with it. So happy to answer any questions or whatever works for you guys. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, no, so I thank you so much for that wonderful introduction and letting us know all of the wonderful things. We appreciate you for being the champion, especially for foster youth like myself, because that's literally what it needs. It really just takes one passionate person to try to kick down some doors so that we can sometimes just gracefully walk through. That's what I tell my program participants. Like, I kick down enough doors for you guys so y'all can walk on through with your crowns and your head held high. So I want to talk more about the mentoring bill before we hop back into the segment. I have not forgotten about my panelists, but I want to talk more specifically about the bill and what the bill will actually do. And specifically, I would love for you to detail how this will help young people in connection with connecting to mentorship, being okay with mentorship, actually having quality mentors, not a quantity of mentors, which is also a problem. And so, we just want to learn more and hear more before we jump back into our conversation with our lovely panelists, more about the bill and how it will specifically help young people.
Sure, there's probably three big buckets of things that would try to do. Obviously most foster programs and mentoring programs are local or state operated. So I'm working in the federal government, but what the federal government can do is provide funding. So it would authorize $50 million in funding for local mentoring programs, whether it's nonprofits, religious organizations, child welfare, educational agencies, athletic programs. I mean, there's so many different avenues for mentoring. So this would provide additional money for those programs that serve foster youth and former foster youth. So that's one piece. The second thing is to provide evidence-backed training to help people be better mentors. I mean, there's a lot of people who are willing, who are not good at it. I think it's a lot like teachers. Some people are just natural teachers and other people need a little help to get in there. So it would provide training and suggestions, some of which are as concrete as the things I've seen going in the chat here. Don't go meet at the foster home. I mean, I know one of the issues I had with the young lady who I became a mentor with was our initial contact was in criminal court when her stepfather was being prosecuted. Hardly a place to start building a relationship when someone is so overwhelmed and so stressed. So providing ways to help people be better mentors. And then the third thing is to strengthen coordination between mentoring programs and the child welfare or foster youth system, because there's not always that natural connection. By definition, almost kids in the foster care program don't have the family parental supports that might be looking for an athletic program or an educational program or a career program or just a mentoring program that's going to help them. So making sure that there's outreach going both ways. So those are sort of the three big things we're hoping to accomplish with this. But happy to hear more ideas if we should amend it.
Yes, no, and that's something that I was going to say. So if you have any ideas that we can share with Miss Mary on ways that she can make this bill, better, even better, and add more value to it, please feel free to put some of those information in the chat, and we can share those with you, especially with our participants, our audience members who have lived experience. And so, Mary, quickly before we chime back into our panelist conversation, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you, what is one key takeaway or advice that you would give to people in the audience as it relates to mentorship and, just mentorship advocacy that you would like people to take away from this conversation? And you can definitely relate it back to the bill if you like, but, seeing that you were a mentor yourself and all of the great things that you have brought to the table and the doors that you open for people, what is some advice that you personally can offer to some of our audience members?
Well, I think from personal experience and what we're trying to help do with the bill is you just need consistency. You need to keep showing up. And I think that's important for both ends, both to build the trust, to have people develop a relationship so that, maybe things aren't great at first, but you get to know each other and you find your common interests and can move forward, and providing the support to make sure that happens. So I think the showing up and continuing to show up even when it's hard on both sides is probably pretty important.
Yes, yes. Well, again, we want to just thank you for being a champion for the child welfare system and all of the hard work that you were putting in, not just along with this bill, and all of the great things. Before you chime off, I do have one more question. I wanted to ask you, because 50 million is a lot of money, right? But we know that 50 million definitely can be stretched once we get to talking about, different overheads and responsibilities, and navigating through that. How much of this $50 million support is actually going to go into the hands of, youth who are in the part of this program for stipends, scholarships, whatever? And is 50 million enough? Do you think that you need more?
Oh, I think it's far from enough. I mean, we need a lot more, but with so many of these things, it's kind of, what is it, getting the camel's nose under the tent, lay down a marker and then expand from there. But again, since we're coming from the federal government, we probably want it to be pretty flexible, because what works in one city or what works with one program is going to be different. So some places, the stipends are going to drive the program or at least get people in the door. And in other places, they might want to spend it more on different kinds of programming. So I think we do want to preserve flexibility, but right now it's just trying to make sure, a lot of it's about educating our colleagues. I mean, shockingly, doing the best thing for kids is not always top of mind in Congress. So, your help to help us tell the stories and why this is so important, then we educate people and we get them more involved and we get them, to understand the importance and then get more money for it. It's kind of a long process, but it is a process. And we've had some good success with the fact that this is something that does cross political party lines. We've got good bipartisan support, which is almost impossible in Congress today. So, just really doing a lot of education, and programs like what you're doing here today are really, really helpful for that. So just making it real for people.
Yes, I love that. So shout out to making it real for people, making it real experiences, authentic experiences. I think that's what has made me so successful within my own program, right? Is because I just show up as Raquel, and that's literally the best that I have. And it works, and so thank you so much, Miss Mary. We're gonna ask that you continue to show up as you continue to advocate for us. And also educating those that, don't think that we're a priority, but need to understand that we are a priority because we are the future. And so we would love for you to be able to stick around if you can, but this webinar is going to be recorded, so we would love to be able to share a recording with you afterwards. But just thank you again for all the work that you have dedicated and all of the new things that you're going to be introducing to further your goals to advocating for system impacted youth. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing what you have already, because I found it really helpful. And, obviously, please come visit if you're on the Hill.
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, you guys. And so thank you, Jackie, Tori, and Dr. Sky. I'm so grateful for you guys, and I want to welcome you guys back to the conversation. I thought that was really important, so I apologize again for having to, go off script a little bit. But I think that, we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit more understanding when we asked some of the heavy-hitting questions that we had, to be transparent about what this bill is going to be and what it's going to look like for former youth, foster youth, and current foster youth like ourselves. And so just thank you guys for your patience. And so I want to jump back into this conversation about mentorship because that's what the focus of this conversation is about. And it's so important, to have mentors. You guys have described what your mentors have been to you, how they help you reshape your life. And so I want to talk about, the terms in terms of building relationships and connecting, establishing family bonds. How did your mentors support you, within your personal relationship with your resource parents, with your resource family, with your birth parents? How did your mentors support you in navigating through those experiences and, trying to find ways to cultivate relationships both good and bad. And so Dr. Scott, I'll pass that over to you first.
Yeah, so my mentor and I would just have a lot of really deep conversations about our families of origin, because she also had a mother who was abusive at times and who wasn't able to control her actions and didn't necessarily remember being abusive and would forget or would act like it didn't happen. And so we connected really deeply on that, because that was something that my biological family would do as well. They were incredibly abusive and neglectful, but then they would act like the abuse wasn't happening, or they would either pretend that it wasn't happening, or perhaps were delusional or in denial about the abuse happening. So that was just something we deeply connected on, was having an abusive parent, having an abusive mother. And so I did cut off contact with most of my maternal side of the family. I'm still in contact with my father and my aunt on my paternal side of the family, but I pretty much had to cut off contact with my maternal side of the family because they were just very toxic, and they were not willing to get help or to apologize or anything like that. So that was just something that my mentor helped me through, is going through the process of cutting off toxic family members and having to cope with that. She understood why I was doing it, and we connected deeply on that level of understanding and empathy. So that was how my mentor supported me.
Yes, yes, I really love it, and I want to meet your mentor. You said she's in Santa Clarita. We're gonna have to roll over there. So I'm in Lancaster. We might be like halfway through, because this all you guys mentors sound like really great for people, and you sound like they really made a deep impact in your life. And so, Tori, what are some of the things about what are some of the ways that your mentor helped you connect to personal relationships? How did they help support you or navigate? Through with your family, with your resource family, with your birth families, and your peer relationships. How did they help you cultivate positive relationships, both good and bad?
Yeah, so Heather definitely taught me like key principles. She spoke life into me, and she also taught me how to grow up, how to become an adult, how to think like an adult, how to forgive, how to have love, just key things that you need to grow in order to like maintain relationships and restore relationships. So I was able to forgive a lot of my biological family for some of the things that I felt like they hurt me on. And we have good relationships now to this day, because of that. And it also just helps me in like professional areas and things like that. I believe it's like the 5 agreements or something that it was one book that she definitely told me, hey, you have to read these principal agreements, because this is how life is going to treat you, and you have to know how to react and respond to certain things. And so she taught me how to not take things personal. When you get a no, that doesn't mean that you have to get mad or that it's a personal no towards you. You can go on, you can try to kick down another door, and how to be, impeccable with your word. When you say you're going to do something, make sure that you do it. And that helps maintain relationships, because people expect you to do what you say that you're going to do. And so certain things like that she taught me that helped me rebuild some of my past relationships, and also how to maintain the good ones that I have right now.
Yes, so Tori, forgiveness is definitely beneficial, and even if it's like not apologies that feel like you need, just having the forgiveness, like, and accepting apologies that you're not going to receive, is also beneficial to healing. And being able, because I feel like the person that you don't want to be shows up in all your relationships, right? And then you got to heal in order to keep that from happening. And so, just thank you so much, Tori, for shedding light on that. And so, Jackie, I want to ask you the same question. If you would be willing to answer it.
I love that, Tori. I just like highly resonate with that, like forgiveness for yourself. So one thing that I could really thank my mentor for was, I think first when I was younger and a young teen going into my adult years, learning how to navigate toxic relationships with my bio family and learning how to cut off contact with them. And as of now, I don't talk to any members of my bio family. But then on the other side of that, learning how to forgive others, because like mentioned, I think some of that trauma and some of that hurt and pain was showing up in my professional relationships, personal relationships, in my relationship with my partner. And so one thing that she introduced me was the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and I highly recommend it if you have not read it. And just understanding how trauma affects the body and how that can affect your life. And just when you have that understanding, I think it's easier to forgive for yourself and to move on, help you move on in your own relationships. And this is for people in foster care, not in foster care, just all across the board. I think it's just such a valuable lesson and understanding to ensure that that trauma, that hurt, that pain does not show up in the work that you do in your relationships now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have so many key takeaways. I hope that everyone is really listening and taking notes of some of the wonderful things that these our panelists are saying. And so just two more questions, and then we're gonna close out for this segment, for this this portion of the segment of the webinar. But so my first question, one of the first questions that I have, in terms of like education support, you know, seeing it through college, like Tori said, you know, Dr. Sky talked about her showing up for your mentor, showing up for your graduation and what that meant to you. You know, Jackie, you talk about your experiences and like all of the things that Jackie's a powerhouse, you guys. All of the things that she's a part of, and like your mentor being there to help you oversee and get through. You know, why was that so important? Like, you know, why is it so important that mentors, you know, be a part of the everyday, all day experiences? Like not just one thing, like, oh, I just want to focus on mentoring you for school, but just everything, the cultivating relationships, you know, helping you, you know, recognize your disappointments and how to navigate through those, helping you navigate through the different no's. Like why was that so important for you guys? And why do you think that that is important for other people to have? And that's going to segue into my final question. And Jackie, I'll start with you. Any one of you guys can answer the question, but Jackie, I'll start with you. Well, Jackie is on mute, so while she's navigating the mute button, I'll start with we go pass it to Tori.
Okay, yeah. So I think that is very important for a mentor to, you know, show up in all areas of the mentee's life, because life doesn't stop at the subject that you are focusing on. You know, life still goes on. And so like everyone I think today has said that consistency is key. You know, if they can only count on you in a certain aspect, then that means that they're, you know, if the rest of their life is overpowering that, then they're not going to, you know, see the mentorship as valuable. You know, if you can be a little bit more flexible with your time and with your expertise too. You know, we all know that life doesn't end after college or after you get the job. You know, you're still going to have to deal with relationships. You're still going to have to deal with financial issues, educational problems, you know, housing, the fact that life is so abundant and it has so many just different areas of it, you have to be willing to give a little bit of something in all aspects. Heather, for me, was there at my basketball games. She hosted my baby shower. She helped me get into school. I attended AVID and things like that, so I knew all about scholarships and, you know, financial aid and things like that. That was actually an area that she didn't know too much about because she didn't go to college, you know, but I helped her daughter be able to excel in some of those areas because I had that knowledge. And so it was a give and take, but the fact that she just didn't stop after the game, or she found out I was pregnant and she couldn't give any insight on that, the fact that she kept going and kept showing up, you know, is the reason why we still communicate to this day, and the reason why it was so impactful on my life. So keep going, stay consistent, show up in all areas a little bit, just a little bit is all that's needed.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much for that perspective. And so Jackie, the same question, and then Dr. Sky, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I think just one thing that my mentor did was showing up for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like I remember her being there at my lowest points, and then to see me, you know, cross the stage for my master's graduation. And all and everything in between. And so like just showing up authentically and consistently, not when you want to, not when you have good days, because it's not about you, it's about them. And I think when you do that, it shows, and your mentee will feel that, and that will help breed a more authentic relationship and closer relationship. So just showing up, the good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, I'll add. So I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with attachment theory, but basically, if you grow up in a toxic environment, if you have parents that you can't trust and you don't feel safe around, you can develop an insecure attachment. So that can look like avoidance, that can look like anxiety, or that can look disorganized. And so when you have parents that give you that type of attachment style, it can be hard to connect with others. It can be hard to have relationships with others. I think that's something we've seen today in what Atori and Jacqueline have been sharing, is that it was difficult to trust people initially. You had fears about trusting people. But to improve attachment, all you need is one healthy adult. Just one healthy adult can improve your attachment styles with others. So just because you had parents that were negative or that were unsupportive or that you couldn't trust or felt safe with, just because you developed an insecure attachment with your parents, it doesn't mean that you're cursed to then develop insecure attachment with everyone else in your life. It doesn't mean that you're doomed. It means that if you have one healthy attachment with one healthy adult, it can help you have healthy relationships with other adults throughout your life. And so I think that's why mentorship is so important, because you can be that one healthy, safe, trustworthy adult in a child's life and in a young adult's life that then prepares them for the future and prepares them for other relationships. So I'm so lucky that I had that with my mentor. I had that with my therapist. I had that with my foster mother. I had that with my teachers. Even though my family was so abusive, neglectful, and unsupportive of me, it really does take a village to raise a child. And I'm so lucky that my village was my teachers, my mentor, my foster mother, and my therapist, and my father and my aunt. I had that village. And so that's why I'm able to be where I am today. I'm able to be a doctor. I'm able to be a therapist. I'm able to support myself and support others because I have that village backing me up. So I think that's what my takeaway is for anyone in the audience who is debating whether you want to be a mentor or not. I think just knowing that you can be the one that makes a difference. You can be that one healthy, secure adult in a person's life that really prepares them for the future and enables them to have healthy relationships with others.
Yes. Yes, I mean that was such a perfect segue into my next question, Sky. So let me just have you unmute yourself so I can just have you follow on up. And so you gave your insight to mentors, and that's what I was going to ask you to offer a key takeaway, a piece of advice to mentors in the audience that might be thinking about or considering being mentors. And so thank you. So then the other question I was going to ask is, could you offer advice to those who are in the audience that is considering mentorship, and what would be the biggest benefit that they can take away from it?
Yeah, I think being a mentor is such an amazing experience because you get to really watch someone grow. You get to watch someone live out their life and achieve their goals, and you get to be a supportive person to help them do that. So yeah, if you're debating being a mentor, again, just think about how you can be that one person in their life that's supportive and helpful and trustworthy and safe. And showing up, like Jacqueline has said, like good and bad and ugly. I love that. Showing up is so important. My biological mother never showed up. She didn't show up to my graduation from middle school. She didn't show up to my award ceremonies. She didn't show up to back to school night. She didn't show up to open house. She didn't show up to talent shows. She didn't show up to anything. So having my mentor show up to my graduation and both of my bachelor's and my master's graduation and show up to special events, that was so important and so meaningful for me. So you can be that person who shows up for someone. So just consider that. If it's something that you're thinking about doing, you're not really sure, I would say go for it, because it's amazing that you get to watch a person grow and achieve their goals, and you get to help them do that.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. I really appreciate you. And it's always a pleasure having you on in these conversations, offering your expertise. And so Jacqueline and Tori, I want to ask you guys the same question. If you could offer one piece of advice to a mentor that's in the audience that's considering considering being a mentor, what would you say? And then also to the young people, to the people in the audience that may be in need of a mentor or considering mentorship, what is the biggest benefit that they could what is the biggest benefit they can walk away from having a mentor?
I can go. I would echo what Dr. Sky said. I think mentorship is a two-way street of you being fulfilled with what you're doing and also being able to change the trajectory of your mentee's life. The only thing that I will say is to make sure, if you're on the fence of considering mentorship, is to make sure you have the time and space and capacity for it. Something personally, I wanted to be a CASA worker when I was going to school, but I knew I did not have enough time, space, or capacity for it. But now that I'm working full time, I believe I have the time, and so I'm on my way to do that, because I don't want to be stretched so thin that the mentee feels that, or feels like I'm not there, or I'm doing bare minimum, or just seeing them. I want to give my all and my full attention and be there for the good and the bad and the ugly.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, Tori, to answer some question. Do you want me to ask it?
No.
Okay.
It's all good. We've been talking about mentorship this entire time. If you are still on the fence about debating if it's necessary, it's necessary. Okay. I think we've all kind of discussed how it has impacted our lives for the betterment. So I think for the most part, anyone who has a mentor is grateful for that mentor. So if you're on the fence about it, if you're still thinking about it, do some research, find a local agency that offers mentorship, that offers training. If you just want to get a little bit of education behind it, and I say go for it. Start close to home. If you're a parent, you're already a mentor. We parent our children, we mentor our children all day and night. And so if you can be that helping hand or that extra voice to someone else, why not do that? Find someone that you share experiences with, or share some common ground with, to where it's not so that it doesn't have to feel like work, because it should be something of a natural type of connection. And for those youth who are considering mentorship, or don't know if you're open to a mentor, I say go for it, as well. I say that if you need, just like extra help, why not have somebody in your life that can point you in the right direction? We've all kind of shared our experience about how mentorship has, greatly impacted us. And so I think it would be the same pretty much for anybody else who is in need of just that helping hand, that extra push, that extra bit of encouragement, that person to tell you to go left when you need to go left instead of you going right, or whatever the case may be. Definitely go for it and just try it out. Take it slow, and I pray the best for everyone.
Yes, well, I just want to thank you three so much. You guys know that I always just really adore working with you guys, and just connecting with you guys in any ways, being a supportive factor. And I'm hoping that, you guys see me as one of y'all mentors, or like one of y'all people that y'all have supportive in y'all corner, because I really appreciate you guys and all of the work that you guys are doing just for system impacted youth, and just everything. And so I want to encourage you guys to become mentors of your own, because you guys definitely have a story. You definitely have the experience and the authentic, creative ways to be able to connect with, youth like us, and make an impact on them. And so I definitely want to encourage you three to consider being mentors. I love hearing Jackie saying that she wants to be a CASA worker. Maybe that's something that we can both navigate through together, because I'm also interested in doing that as well. And so just thank you three so much for your expertise and offering your advice, and being welcoming to all of these questions about mentorship and all of the importance of mentorship. And so we're really grateful to have you. And so I want to, at this time, talk about, are we pulling up the slide? I'm not sure, but I definitely just want to share a little bit about the YVR program. The Youth Voices Rising program is dedicated to amplifying the voices of system impacted youth who've experienced the child welfare system, the juvenile justice system, the homeless system, and all of the systems that we ultimately can be pipelined through. I do so many different things in collaboration with other organizations, hosting workshops to amplify the voices of lived experienced youth, writing contests, paid contributor roles. I'm creating a initiative for Black and Brown males with UCLA. And so, just all of these different opportunities that allow me to be able to just, put my head down and work and be the Raquel that I desperately needed when I was coming out of the system. And so if you are interested in learning more about the YVR program and all of the wonderful things that we are doing here, we would love to connect with you. In addition, we are in the heart of our back to school drive initiative right now. And so if you are someone on the call, or you have someone or know someone in your care, in your supportive network that is in need of a backpack full of supplies, a college-bound student that's in need of essential dorm items, essential items that can get them by computers. I have refrigerators, I have microwaves, I got mini refrigerators. I have so many different items. We have a request form. We have a request form that's dedicated so that you can reach out to us and request to receive one of the items that we are going to be giving away at our public event in Leimert Park area on July 29th. And so we'll share some of the information about the back to school drive in the follow-up email that you will be receiving. If you are someone that would like to donate $5 or $5 worth of pack of pencils, some paper, I'm telling you that these youth really need it. We're trying to eliminate some of the challenges that these students are going to, have to experience before they even have to experience them. And that's literally the importance and the reason why we created this project. And so with that being said, again, I want to thank my three lovely panelists that welcomed me into having this conversation with them. And pass it back to Val. Thank you so much to our sister program, Foster and Families today, for having me. Oh God, I believe in
There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. So if you've been with us this morning, when I said Raquel is an enthusiast for young people, she's an advocate, she's a vocal advocate, she's outspoken. She is busy 24/7. I'm trying to find my picture, but I'm here. I just can't find it. Okay, show self. Maybe that works. There we go. Okay, show self. So I was not kidding when I said Raquel is out there doing the hard work. And she mentioned something, and I want to, Raquel, you went by it so fast. I don't know if anybody got it, but the Young Black Men's Program. Tell me about that real quick, because we rarely hear about programs specifically built around supporting young Black men in care. Do that for me, please.
Yes. So essentially, we're going to be hosting, YVR is going to be hosting the conversation this year. You can find all of our webinars on our page to sign up for the rest of the year. But one of the webinar conversations we are going to be having is dedicated to the experiences of Black and Brown males, specifically Black and Hispanic males. Talking about the systems that they have been pipelined through, placing a strong and a highlight on bring awareness to all of the issues that prevent, Black and Brown males from being able to be successful and be in safe places to talk about their experiences. And so with that, we have an intern that is a Bruin Scholar named Dylan at UCLA. And when we hired him, he asked me to be a part of a project. And so we talked about turning this webinar into a summit that has essentially turned into a huge project. And so I'm creating a Black and Brown college-bound male coalition, and it's going to be dedicated to amplifying the voices of college students who identify as Black, African American, or Hispanic Latino. And they're going to go be a part of a cohort. They're going to participate in the curriculum. We're going to try to match them with other field industry professionals so that they can get some mentorship, which is one of the things that we're talking about today. But essentially creating a project that's designed to amplify the voices and create a safe space for Black and Hispanic males to share their experiences and offer some, so that we can have some policy changes and some resources and more opportunities dedicated to inspiring males to come and be a part of these conversations. I would love to have more males be on the webinars and more males being open to talk about their experiences, but there's not a lot of spaces for that. And so with this project, that's exactly what I plan to do.
Okay, do me a favor, Raquel, and take a moment and put your FMC email in the chat room. If anyone wants to contact you, chip in and help, recommend a young person who might be interested. I want to make this happen because I've said time and time again, we don't hear from young men. We need to hear from young men and their experiences.
Yes.
So take a moment and do that. And can we get slide number 7 again so that we can show the information about Youth Voices Rising? Can we do that? Good, good, good. Thank you so much. Youth Voices Rising. The link is in there. Take a look, jot it down. You can find us. Let me know how I can help, Raquel. I think this is a vital conversation. To learn more, okay, the website, you can check them out, imprintnews.org/youth voices. Is that correct, Raquel? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that is correct. And I'm going to
Okay.
also drop the link in the chat.
Okay, cool. Do that. I want to move on to the next segment of today's show. This month is National Foster Care Awareness Month. But before we go there, I have to say thank you to Atori, Dr. Sky, and Jacqueline for being with us today, for sharing their experiences, not just of being in care, but of having a mentor and how it changed their lives. I don't normally work with them, so this is new for me, but their willingness and their openness speaks to the power of young voices in this conversation when it comes to systems involved youth. And thank you, the three of you, so much for being so open and honest and forthright about your experiences. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for entrusting your care to Raquel, and thank you for sharing that with our audience. Well, as I mentioned, this month is Foster Care Awareness Month, and Raquel and myself, we were in foster care. And I want to talk a little bit about, this is a personal thing, and Deborah Denzel joins us, and you've met Raquel. I want to have Deborah introduce herself. And I want to talk about our experiences as we look at foster care awareness. I want to acknowledge it because it's important to acknowledge. It's important to acknowledge the people out there doing the hard work, the boots on the ground out there in the field, whether you're a caseworker or a social worker, whether you're a resource parent, whether you're supporting them, whether you're the support network that undergirds resource parents. I want to acknowledge you today. Each of us, Raquel, Deborah, and I have unique stories about our foster care experience. Deborah comes from a different perspective in that she also worked in the child welfare system. I want Deborah to introduce herself. She can tell you a little bit about her background. Deborah Denzel. Thanks for being here, Deborah.
Hi, Valerie. Hi, Raquel. Hi, everyone tuning in and all of the speakers today. So I am Deborah Denzel. I am the Business Development Manager for Fostering Media Connections, which means I oversee all of our subscriptions and sponsorships. But I also am a social worker. I have a child welfare background. So I have my MSW from University of Michigan, and I practice social work in the state of Michigan. So I have been a foster care worker, foster parent recruiter, trainer. I've been a program manager, ironic enough, for a girls mentoring program. And that's the last role I had before joining FMC. So I have that perspective and experience within the child welfare system, as well as, and I see Aggie Pride. So I'm also a Bennett Bell. My undergraduate is from Bennett College. And I have the personal experience. So I grew up and aged out of the Connecticut foster care system. So a couple different experiences.
And I grew up in New York City's foster care system and was reunified and promptly ran away. And those of us who understand trauma can understand the reasons behind that. And let's see, Raquel, you grew up where in foster care?
Okay, give me, I thought I was on mute. Okay, so yes, I grew up in the Los Angeles County foster care system, and then I was pipelined to the juvenile Silmar Detention Center, because there wasn't any group homes available. And then I also spent some time in Central Juvenile Justice System and a whole list of different foster cares. I actually stopped counting after 33. I've lived in over 33 homes. I don't know how many, literally I stopped counting. And so, yeah, all around LA County. They just used to be shipping me around.
I forgot about that. When I ran away, I was arrested and I went to Spofford in the Bronx. It's now closed down because it's uninhabitable. It was uninhabitable then. So I wanted to talk about our experiences, but I don't know if we should go there. I wonder if perhaps you guys might be interested in continuing this conversation about having a mentor and what it meant in your lives. If you had a mentor, and if you didn't, I personally have never had a mentor. I didn't know what a mentor was. And I was one of those kids who didn't trust adults. I couldn't. Every adult in my life had let me down and I didn't know. So I don't have mentors. What I have is a family of aunties who don't even know me. They know nothing about me, but they're women who I look up to, and they come from all backgrounds. Margaret Thatcher, Coretta Scott King, for anyone. Yeah, I didn't know how to get a mentor. So I went to grad school without anyone to guide me through it. But there were women in the Bay Area who were in the San Francisco Bay Area who were on the news, and I knew I wanted to be like them. I knew that I wanted to emulate their success, and so that's who they don't know me, but they are my aunties. And so throughout my life, my young adult life, I've had a succession of aunties who I've tried to look at and say, okay, they've overcome criticism and they've overcome hard times and they've overcome some of the worst times in their lives. So how can Valerie be that? And so here I am today. And so I volunteer as a CASA, but now I wonder if I should be a mentor. Deborah?
Well, I would argue you are a mentor if you are, in that CASA program. So I didn't have a formal mentor. I wasn't part of any formal mentoring programs growing up, but it wasn't until, and there goes my earring. It wasn't until I was an adult and I look back at my experiences that I recognize I did have mentors, these informal mentors. I think from a young age, I had foster parents that were mentors to me, that exposed me to experiences that and those experiences allowed me to tap into developing my character and developing skills and then even demonstrating skills of theirs that influenced me later on. For example, one foster home that at the time I absolutely hated it, but they taught me study habits. It was a new thing to me. They really wanted me to excel in school, which I did during that year I was in their foster home. And it wasn't until, and that was in middle school, it wasn't until college that I reflected back years prior to those skills that they taught me. And so there's these reflections on foster homes, on social workers. I recently received my case file and briefly skimmed through it. And I was reminded of these times that my social worker was a mentor to me and showed up for me and just really was there. And then in high school, there was a woman, a neighbor, Dr. Nikki, and she is a mentor. She is a godmother. She calls me her, it's informal, but she calls me her goddaughter. And she, you know, encouraged me. She has her doctorate, and she encouraged me to go to college, and not just college, but graduate school. And, you know, earlier it was someone who spoke about sometimes it's just a statement that a mentor can say, and this lives with me forever. When I was considering graduate school, I was having trouble locating funds, and she said, well, Deborah, if you don't invest in yourself, who will? And I'm just like, man, you're so right. I'm going to have to invest in myself with this. It was a great decision. And so anyways, never a formal mentoring program, but it was these moments. And again, it wasn't until I was an adult, I've been able to reflect back and recognize all of these key moments that people showed up and people guided me. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Raquel, did
So
you have a mentor?
Yes, I was just gonna say, for me, I had a mentor. And I feel like that my mentor, she probably don't know that she was my mentor at the time. But I always shout her out. Her name is Sid Stewart. Some of you guys might know her from Better You, in LA County, or organization that's dedicated to teaching lived experience youth how to turn their stories into and produce film. And so that was my first baby before I came to FMC. I am actually one of the founding members of the Real to Real festival that's hosted at the LA Film School. And so, you know, with Miss Stewart, so Miss Stewart met me when I was like a gangster with that was just pure bad. I was angry at the time, and in that part of my life, I was very angry. I feel like that I had a good hand on my shoulders. You know, I wanted great things for myself, and the people that were around me wanted bad things for me. And so with Miss Stewart, she met me when I was 16 years old. I was 11th grade. No, I was 11, the end of my 11th grade year, getting ready to start Jordan, which was my senior year. And actually, I believe I was getting ready to turn 17 when she met me. And you know, I took her through a roller coaster. And one of the things that I can say for sure is that consistency was the key. Like me, I used to be one of the people that walked around with my foster youth rights, so I can tell people when they was violating my rights. And you know, she just kind of really encouraged me to see, like, you know, like the part that I didn't get to see in myself. Like, I always was a gift for gab. I always had sass. You know, but you know, it was about being able to be welcomed back in rooms, you know, after I was initially invited. And that was the problem, that I was so angry that I was taking my anger out on people who actually loved and cared about me, because the people who said they loved and cared about me didn't. And so, you know, it was hard for me to believe that, you know, that actually was what it was. And so when Miss Stewart, someone that I still talk to, I actually owe her lunch, and I probably owe her a dinner or two. I'm actually trying to connect with her soon in LA. But she's been a part of my life since I was 16, 17 years old, and she's still here. One of the great things that I love about our relationship is that she always held me accountable, but she held me close. You know, like, it's like, I'm gonna give you tough love, Raquel, but I still love you. Like, you know, it's like, you tripping right now, but give me a hug, because I get why you mad. And she was one of the first people, like, people used to always be like, why are you so angry? Why you fight so much? And I used to be like, well, why y'all asking what's going on with me? Like, why nobody y'all just be assuming that I'm angry. Nobody took the time to really say what they did to you, baby, like what they done did to you. And I feel like that she really created opportunities for me to open up and be honest with her, you know, about, like, you know, my life experiences and some of the things that I was dealing with, like, you know, and just being a supportive factor, but just ultimately never giving up on me. So then I know not to give up on myself. And I token her for being a part of my success story, and the reason why I'm here today doing the type of work that I do.
Well, I started out today's conversation, Raquel and Deborah, by saying, no matter what you do for a living, no matter where you live, you can mentor a young person. And the results of that have been shown today by the young people who joined us from Youth Voices Rising, Atori, Dr. Sky, and Jacqueline. Let's go. I want to pull up the slide with the resources. I think that was 4, 5, and 6, so you guys can have a quick look. We're going to post them on our website, but there are mentoring organizations in every corner of the country. They just need you to stand up for the kids. So slides 4, 5, and 6, can we take a look at those real quickly? While we do that, I want to thank everyone who joined us today, our guests, our attendees, our participants. And just thank you. This is an important webinar. We all want to show up for young people and care. That does it for today's webinar. You'll find a link in your mailbox shortly. It'll also be posted on our site later today. Feel free to share with friends and colleagues the link so you can connect with us here at Fostering Media Connections, here at Fostering Families Today, at Youth Voices Rising. Stay in touch. Let us know what's on your mind. We also want to hear from you if you have ideas for webinars. Do that. Stay in touch. Thank you to all of our guests for joining me. Deborah Denzel, who does one of my favorite people. She does a phenomenal job here. Thank you, Raquel, for the fantastic conversation. I said she's an outspoken advocate for young people. I meant it. She is. If you haven't met her before, you have now. Contact her here at Youth Voices Rising. We'd love to hear from you. Join us again next time. We're going to come back in July with some more stimulating conversation. We'll be discussing something that was very much in demand from you from last year, and that's strengthening that connection between FIRST and resource families. We've got great guests already lined up. We've already got that in the bag. Register now, fosteringfamiliestoday.com. Free resources, pull down the drop down. It's free. We'd love to see you. Send me an email, VEE@fosteringmediaconnections.org. I'd love to get some feedback from you. And we are always on the lookout for families to feature on the cover and inside the magazine. If you have a compelling story you'd like to share with us, we want to hear from you. Fosteringmediaconnections.org. And send us a photo. We love photos. Okay. In the meantime, stay up to date with news and information from our sister publications, Youth Voices Rising and The Imprint. Until next time, I'm Valerie Edwards.